can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blur Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving and hopefully an awesome kickoff to your holiday season. I do want to make sure that before we get into everything, I want to make sure you all are taking care of yourselves and being very safe out there, because with the holidays starting up, things just get crazy. So I just wanted to get that out there because, you know, this whole content creation thing, you know, sometimes those things get kind of lost in translation in videos and things of that nature. So yeah, I just want to make sure you all are taking care of yourselves. That said, let's talk about Daredevil, number 5, by Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto. Alright, so this comic is really hilarious to me. And I don't mean hilarious like, oh my god, it's super funny because of all the jokes they tell. What I mean by that is it's hilarious to me because this is one of those few instances where a comic book character has real, true progression. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking, well, that's easy to have progression because Chip Zdarsky has been writing this character for the past few years. Well, yes, you are correct. But what I really like about this is seeing plot threads that have been teased for, you know, the better part of a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, finally paying dividends and doing it in ways that just are chef's kiss. For those who have not been keeping up, Daredevil has become the leader of the Fist, which is the antithesis of the Hand, the ninja organization that has long been the enemy of Daredevil since time immemorial. Well, I won't say time immemorial, technically since Daredevil number 174 in 1981. But yeah, I love this because Daredevil has not only been getting progression from his earlier Chip Zdarsky stories, but there's also some callbacks to things that happened during the Andy Diggle era of Daredevil during Shadowland back in like 2010, 2011, so a little over 10 years ago. And I say that because we are seeing Daredevil in a position of leadership at the forefront of a ninja organization, but at the same time doing it in a better way. He has become more powerful now, I presume, than he was during Shadowland. During Shadowland, his power had increased significantly to the point where he was actually able for the first time ever to hold his own against some of Marvel's most powerful martial artists by way of Iron Fist and Shang-Chi. Now, we don't know if he has any means of healing factor or regeneration or, you know, immortality or anything of that nature like he had during Shadowland. I think it's safe to say he probably has something close to it, if not that exactly, though it hasn't been completely spelled out yet. But what we do know is that not only has he become more powerful, not just in terms of physical strength and agility, but also in terms of his radar sense. His radar sense is now off the charts. He can now see not just what everybody is doing, it's almost as if he has gained the power of Heimdall because he can now see intention. Not only is it implied that he can see the intent of a person just on his radar sense alone, but he's also made mention of the fact that he can feel and sense the emotions of others around him. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter whether it's anger, happiness, sadness, joy, fear, whatever. Daredevil has been leveling up ever since he started his journey towards becoming the leader of the Fist, and it's all thanks to his wedding ceremony with Elektra, a ceremony that was very much a combat ritual style wedding ceremony where he and Elektra fought off demons and monsters together as one, and this is how they solidified the pact between them that makes the Fist go from being an ancient mystic martial arts prophecy to being a modern day reality. And this doesn't just only apply to Daredevil and Elektra, it applies to the entirety of the Fist organization. Everyone who is involved and pledged their allegiance to the Fist have all gotten superpowers. Now, I'm not talking about X-Men level stuff where they're shooting lasers out of their eyes, at least, you know, not yet. I'm joking when I say that, by the way. But they have all gained superhuman strength, agility, stamina, durability, and who knows what else. Possibly even superhuman senses. This doesn't just apply to the mercenaries who have all pledged their allegiance to both Daredevils of the Fist, but also even to Foggy Nelson and Cole North. They all have superhuman agility, speed, stamina, strength, durability, all that stuff. Foggy Nelson is now a ninja, and Cole North, the detective who threw hands with Daredevil and beat him in a straight up fight, also now has superpowers, and it scares the hell out of him. This wedding ceremony was something that seemed probably trivial to your average reader of Daredevil comics, but no, this was actually something far greater. It has turned the Fist into something the Hand should be terrified of. However, they're not taking it that seriously right now. They're too busy focusing on other things, putting their puppets in place at the highest level of the global political arena. They have embedded people in all of the different infrastructures, systems in world politics to have the most control humanly possible. We already know that they have the Stromwinds in their pocket, the Stromwinds being the very same two people who have been bankrolling Wilson Fisk run as not just mayor, but even tried to get him into the presidency. They have been a thorn in Daredevil's side since Chip Zdarsky took over writing duties on Daredevil. And while Matt knows that they need to stop the Stromwinds as well as all the other people that the Hand have embedded across the world's political arena, Matt also knows they need an army. The Hand has a relentless amount of ninjas at their disposal. They have even discovered ways to unlock the ability to take people's bodies, send their souls to hell, but still maintain that person's body in essence in physical form and use them as their own ninja puppets however they see fit. Matt knows they can't contend with that just yet. So what he does know they need is an army. And while they do have a growing army of people all dedicated to the Fist, it's not enough. They need to swell their numbers. And what better way to do that than to take something that Wilson Fisk used against Daredevil as well as the Avengers during Devil's Reign. All of the criminals and prisoners that he had locked away in the Myrmidon. The Myrmidon is a prison that kicked off during Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America run. It's a maximum security prison that is out in the ocean, no different than the Raft. And Mayor Fisk was using this as his prime recruitment area for his Thunderbolts. And as we learned at the end of Devil's Reign, the Thunderbolts have been disbanded, at least Mayor Fisk version of the program, and it's been reenacted by Mayor Luke Cage. And while he's not using criminals as the previous versions of the Thunderbolts used to, those Thunderbolts are still there in the Myrmidon and have been pretty much left to languish in a maximum security prison with no direction whatsoever. And that's something that's very personal to Matt because, as I mentioned earlier, he has spent a great deal of time in prison during at least half of Chip Zdarsky's run on Daredevil. Hence why Elektra has been operating as Daredevil for the last half a year or so. And Daredevil knows that the system is broken. He knows the criminal justice system now, more than ever, is not the criminal justice system that he once believed in. Ever since Daredevil Volume 6, number 25, where he first went to jail, he has learned firsthand just how flawed the system truly is. And maybe it's even worse than what he could even have possibly imagined. That it's broken. He knows good people are wrongly accused and overly sentenced. He knows of criminals who truly want to better themselves and are never given a real chance, and he knows better than anyone the prison business is just that, a business. He remembers how the prison he was sentenced to was manipulating its prisoners, dosing them with experimental drugs that would make them more violent and prone to commit crimes again once they got out of prison and end up right back in jail, all to keep the money flowing into a for-profit prison system. Daredevil doesn't want that to be a thing. He knows that it's against everything that justice should be about. And it's a thing I've said on multiple occasions. What's the point of any supervillain or just criminal in general reforming themselves if they're never going to be given a fair chance? And a lot of these prisoners are not being given a fair chance. They're very likely being given these same drugs that Daredevil was subjected to that would make him more violent should he get out of prison, and so that he would just end up right back where he started. And while those drugs are not mentioned in this issue, I'm pretty sure they're being used in more prisons than the one that Daredevil was in. So what does Daredevil decide to do this issue? He decides to attack the Myrmidon and liberate each and every one of its prisoners, at least the ones who willingly want to go. And for the most part, the characters who are released from this prison, some of them were very recently members of Mayor Fisk Thunderbolt's team. There are some characters you may recognize that are spotted throughout the course of this comic. We see characters like Agony, possibly Taskmaster, and we also see the character of Stiltman, most of which who seem to go along with what Daredevil is selling. giving them an opportunity to do something good and actually prove that they're reformed. And what better way to do that than taking down one of the oldest, most violent, and deadly ninja organizations in the history of Marvel Comics, the Hand. Now, to do this, Daredevil has to put hands on what is arguably the worst Captain America in the MCU, John Walker, aka US Agent. For those who don't know, John Walker, aka US Agent, is a former Captain America. This was all roughly around Captain America number 333, 334. It wasn't something that ultimately stuck, which is why a lot of people don't associate him with being a Captain America, but in the MCU, they did recently try to do something very similar to what was done during Captain America number 333 and 334. US Agent has kind of always been considered the symbol of conservatism and extreme right-wing politics, even jokingly being referred to as right-wing Captain America, a guy who was on par with Captain America in just about every aspect except personality. US Agent is often considered a bit of a joke because he's one of those characters who usually ends up on the wrong side of things. US Agent is often used as a cautionary tale for getting too caught up in propaganda and trying to back big government. Not to mention, US Agent is a guy who was trained by Taskmaster in combat, so he's a guy who knows how to throw hands. And it's one of those deals where a lot of times in Marvel, people like to use Taskmaster as a rubric for just how good someone is. Like, usually if somebody beats the brakes off Taskmaster, you're like, all right, this guy might just be the real deal, because typically Taskmaster can hold his own in combat against just about anyone. And US Agent is kind of in that same boat, but Daredevil proves that he's a better Captain America than even US Agent could have ever hoped to have been. Because while yes, US Agent, kind of a joke, his shield isn't even fully made of vibranium and adamantium the way Cap's shield is. His shield is nowhere near as durable as actual Steve Rogers' shield is, but it wouldn't matter regardless, because Daredevil has proven that Cap's shield is no match for him because he can easily pinpoint where it is at all times, and he has consistently in the past deflected it and even caught it when Steve Rogers has thrown it at him, proving that he actually is better at using US Agent's shield than even US Agent is, even taking it for himself once he's done beating the absolute fool out of John Walker. Now, one thing to take notice of here is that this is also a Daredevil that's fighting US Agent who is not playing by the same rules as he originally used to. This guy is using spiked knucks in order to beat the brakes off US Agent because he knows he needs every advantage humanly possible to take on someone who's as powerful as US Agent is in comparison to himself. Now, the real question I have, since it's made particularly clear that Daredevil kept the shield, I wonder if he's actually going to repaint it in Daredevil colors. I mean, technically it's kind of already close, but I wonder if he's gonna put a big double D on it or a fist or maybe some horns. Who knows? He could do anything he wants to with it. I would be interested to see how that's going to play out. I'm even more curious to see if US Agent, having just recently gotten the brakes beat off of him, is going to end up trying to seek Daredevil out and maybe try and get his head straight. Because at the end of this, you can tell John Walker's feeling some type of way. The way he's looking at Daredevil as he's walking away from him, you can tell this ain't over. Now, speaking of recruits, we know for a fact that Daredevil has recruited 15 specific supervillains. We don't really know exactly who all of them are, but we do know at least one of them is Stiltman, and very likely Agony and Whiplash as well. This is going to make Daredevil a whole problem for the Hand now, because he now has real, actual hitters on the fist. We know that even the Avengers are taking them seriously because they caught surveillance footage of Daredevil breaking these criminals out of the Myrmidon, and they also took notice of the fact that Daredevil wasn't exactly trying to hide that it was him, even looking at the camera almost as if he is daring someone from the Avengers to try and come run his fade, to the point Iron Man and Captain America are now having to seriously consider sending the Avengers after Daredevil and the Fist. They've seen this all go down before. They've seen Daredevil go down that Shadowland path back when Daredevil was the leader of the Hand, and now they see him in charge of another ninja organization. Of course, Cap and Iron Man have their concerns, and rightfully so, but I gotta admit, I like that Daredevil is feeling conflicted. He is actually trying to lead the fist and take them on against the hand. But at the same time, you can tell he's starting to wonder if maybe he's letting things go too far. He's already witnessed how far Frank Castle is willing to go in his leadership of the hand. How far is Daredevil willing to go? To the point that he is even justifying a lot of his actions to his now on-site psychologist, Doc Samson, who right now is going by Doc Sasquatch. If you haven't been keeping up, you have to kind of go back to the Immortal Hulk side of things under Al Ewing and Joe Bennett. That was kind of where all that happened. For those unfamiliar though, Doc Samson has typically been the psychiatrist associated with Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, a guy who also has gamma radiation powers, and while he is nowhere near as strong as the Hulk, he's a guy you usually see if you read any Hulk comics or any Hulk related comics. You see a guy walking around with some long green hair, you can usually assume that's Doc Samson. But yes, even Doc Samson is trying to make sure Daredevil understands what he is doing and why he is doing it. And Daredevil, he knows that he could potentially go too far, but the question is, how far is too far? The hand is a whole monolith, and while yes, Frank Castle is the face of the hand, he's the fist of the beast, the champion of the hand. He's not actually truly the real actual leader. Aka, the character we were introduced to during Daredevil Woman Without Fear, also by Chip Zdarsky, is the actual true leader of the hand, and she is the one who's actually pulling the strings. Frank just kind of happens to be playing along. Now the real question is, what is Daredevil gonna do about Goldie? Goldie was also in that prison. He even meets with Goldie while he's breaking out the other prisoners, and Goldie is starting to wonder if maybe Daredevil is gonna let him out, and Matt is wondering whether or not he should. Goldie has been manipulating Daredevil for years. Everything that has happened to Daredevil over the course of his publication history in regards to the death of Elektra's father, all the way up to his recently getting thrown in prison. All of that was masterminded by Goldie. So is he going to allow Goldie to go free? Is he going to try and bring Goldie into the fist? Or is he just going to leave him to rot in the Myrmidon? I'm going to go on a limb and say he actually does set him free, because as we look at the surveillance footage, we see Elektra leading out the various prisoners we saw earlier. We also see at a later point that Daredevil is walking somebody out of the prison by himself. It's at that precise moment where he turns and looks back at the camera footage that Steve Rogers and Iron Man are looking at. If you look a little closely at the person who's standing next to him, that's not Elektra. That looks like Goldie. I say this because his image is a bit brighter than everything else that's around him, and you can also kind of tell by the hair that's next to Daredevil's head when we see the person standing next to him. You can only see a glimpse of him, but I'm pretty sure Goldie got busted out of the Myrmidon. But anyways, that's everything I wanted to talk about with Daredevil number 5 and everything going on within it. I really love Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil series. It is so good. It is such a good series, and I recommend it to anyone. If you have not been keeping up with them, please, by all means, go back and take a look. And if you haven't been keeping up and you want to see a little bit more, get some insight into what's been going on with Daredevil since Chip Zdarsky took over, check out this playlist right here. And in the meantime, let me know what you thought about Daredevil number 5. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.